Today we look at stupid proposed gambling laws and Rocket Boy. This is the EB Podcast. So first of all, we're going to go live to North Korea and Trump. There's been a war of words. Many people know it's the Rocket Man and Dotard, which is what Kim Jong-un called Trump. Trump obviously coined the Rocket Man term for his North Korean counterpart. But they could soon be at war for real, which is great news for us. Of course, the US over the weekend sent Lanka bombers and F-15s as near to the North Korean border as they can while still staying in international waters. The closest US aircraft has ever been to the North Korean border. The North Koreans said, of course, this is a declaration of war. But as you can hear here, the US called BS on this pretty much straight away.
Does the White House view President Trump's comments at the UN as a declaration of war?
Not at all. We've not declared war on North Korea, and frankly, the suggestion of that is absurd.
What is the White House's reaction to North Korea's threat to shoot down U.S. aircraft, even if it's not in their airspace?
It's never appropriate for a country to shoot down another country's aircraft when it's over international waters. Our goal is still the same. We continue to seek the peaceful denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
So at least the US, of all countries really, is trying to be diplomatic about the situation. Of course, they do have the firepower to completely destroy North Korea, as Trump said, and I think everyone knows. But how long being diplomatic about this works, though, will be hard to tell. I have to say, one thing I haven't said before about this is I'm not sure North Korea are as militarily advanced as they say. Their arsenal is big as they say. Because, you know, for example, when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, Russia kept their missiles quiet. It could mean that North Korea have weapons, but not as much as they say they do, because, you know, the people who don't have a lot to shout about are often the loudest, I think the saying goes. Anyway, in other news, the Prime Minister had a meeting today with European Council President Donald Tusk to discuss how negotiations are going. Hopefully the PM will talk to him in a good way. Hopefully she rolled out the red carpet. I didn't get much of a chance to look at it, and tried to make as good friends with Donald Tusk as she could, whilst also speaking highly of him, but making sure that he knows that we want the best for us out of this trade deal as much as we do with the EU. Okay, so we will learn more about that throughout this week. But speaking of political parties, Labour proposed yet another tax today that they would bring into fruition, they would bring into life if they ever got into government. This time is a proposed tax on bookmakers. It's in an effort to have a way of funding NHS treating betting addicts. But as with many of Labour's policies, I think it's not the right way of dealing with the problem. So, a typical example of Labour trying to stop the problem instead of taking away the source and preventing future problems, which is what the Conservatives try to do. My way to deal with it is simple as you produce a system, or you bring about a system where you make it that you have to have an ID card to bet on anything, to bet in a shop, to bet in an app, to bet on whatever. And you ban people with the problem. So if they show their ID card, they come up on the system. It's a globally recognized system. They come up on the system, and if they are banned from betting because they have a problem, then it doesn't let them bet. And if you don't have your ID card, then there's no bet that happens. And then also, to counter the fact that people are going to start setting up illegal betting sites, the one thing you do if you are seen to be appropriating illegal betting activity, bish bash bosh, right, 100 years in prison. Right, or 10 grand fine, 100 grand fine, something big, just to make sure that the problem is deterred as much as possible, and then continue to treat them on the NHS before it becomes private. There are some betting firms, or many betting firms, that said they would be okay with a small tax. They do make a lot of profit anyway, but unfortunately the thing is there are hundreds of betting firms in the UK, and all of them have to agree to have this tax, or the government will most likely force it on them, which is what Labour tend to do with a lot of their policies. That's probably the route they will take. Also, The thing is, if you give them funding on the NHS, or you give them this kind of funding for annex through this system, then there's less cost to them of having the problem solved. So it just leads to them going back to betting again. Unless you forcibly prevent them from entering a shop, you forcibly stop them, then this is a bad way to deal with the problem. But anyway, also today there was a big debate over whether tackling should be allowed in school rugby. This is stupid. First off, it's part of the game, don't like it. Parents will just pull pupils out of the school PE sessions, and then the school won't do it, and it will get solved via a free market method. People have been playing rugby for hundreds of years. My dad played it when he was at school, and maybe we should look at it. But anyway, there is some business news now. The UK had the greenest summer ever. These great figures produced, I think, by the government showed that we did really well on our green electricity. Dyson also announced they're going to make electric cars by 2020. It's interesting to see what shape they will be. Hopefully they won't be Hoover-shaped cars. And finally, I think the most shocking story of the day, Jaffa Cake packets will now contain 10 cakes instead of 12. What a tragedy that is, to say the least. Anyway, I will be back tomorrow where there'll be more Labour proposals to dismiss, more North Korean threats to laugh at, and I just saw on the news just now that Saudi Arabia are apparently going to allow women to drive, which is a great step forward. Right, I'm Max, and this is the EB Podcast.